One. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Delusions of Grandeur. I'm your host, David Streggy, and here in the room with me, I have my good friend Boris, all the way from
Hi.
Croatia. Thanks for coming on with me again this Sunday. I just wanted to get the reimagining of the haunting uh, out there, since I know this last week we went on about the original The Haunting,
Yeah.
and this one was filmed in 1999. Um, Here's a copy of it.
Oh, nice.
Kind of a cool cover, but the film stars Liam Neeson, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Owen Wilson, and Lily Taylor. It was directed by Jan de Bont. Um, and let me just give a sort of small synopsis about this particular adaptation. When Eleanor, Theo, and Luke decide to take part in a sleep study at a huge mansion, they get more than they bargained for when Dr. Marrow tells them the house's ghostly past. So,
Hmm.
uh, um, having seen this film adaptation, what were your first thoughts on it?
Well, I have to say I really enjoyed this movie a lot. After I watched it, I looked it up on IMDb and Wikipedia, and I was surprised to see that apparently many people disliked it, and it got a lot of bad reviews from what I read. I kind of don't see why. I thought it was a pretty good remake, although I also read it wasn't really a remake, but its own adaptation of the novel. And I found the movie really good and enjoyable. I like how at one point it kind of goes in its own direction. The story takes its own direction, different from the original, and it was really suspenseful. And in spite of having seen the original, I didn't know what to expect from this one, which was really interesting. And
I
well,
agree.
that
I mean, I know that I was around when this film came out. In fact, I actually went and saw this in the theaters when
oh
it came out. So
wow.
seeing it in the theaters and up front, I loved the look of the exterior of the house, specifically. But I also loved the interior of the house as well, because a lot of it was like hardwood floors, sculptures. It
Oh
had
yeah, yeah.
it had rooms like nothing I'd ever seen. It had hallways. Even the statues were interesting. That eventually played a part in some of the hunting itself. So, um,
Yeah.
my first viewing of this was, I thought that it was amazing. I thought that the CGI effects were pretty awesome. Okay, yeah, a lot of it probably could not have happened. or or it could have. I don't know, but I really liked how out of this world this house seemed to be benevolent. I mean, it seemed to be evil, you know. But
Yeah.
we have a similar storyline here. So the thing is, it's a little different. Um, in fact, it's quite different because in the first film adaptation, um, everyone knows that the house is haunted. Once they get there, they know that they're there because he wants to do this scientific experiment. Well, Liam Neeson in the very beginning of this one makes a very broad statement saying, "You don't tell them the rats are in the maze." Jesus Christ, you know.
Yeah,
So
that was pretty surprising. Uh, mm, that makes him quite different from the original version of his character.
well, yeah. So another thing is Luke is different. He's not part of the family per se that has to do with the house. He's just another sleep contestant that
Mm,
ends up showing up at the house as part of Dr. Markham's experiment. He's just some regular Joe, schmo kind of character, instead of him having to the only reason why he could rent the house is having someone directly uh, from the people who own the place. You don't even get to see any of the people who own the place. You get the history of the
mm.
house from Dr. Markham.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we did see a portrait of Hugh Crane's second wife, and
Another thing that was different that I noticed um, was okay. Eleanor, when she was at home arguing with her sister
oh
um,
yeah,
and her husband, we get a scenario here where in the novel and in the original movie adaptation of this, there was a little girl who was portraying the sister's daughter. In
yeah,
here,
and
he's an annoying little kid.
yeah.
What did you think about that little kid?
Well, I thought he was a kid like any other one, although I could kind of see why, in a situation like what Eleanor was going through, I did see why his behavior would be annoying in such a particular situation, but otherwise, a kid like any other, I guess.
So, what do you think of Eleanor's character here as we first see her? Do you think that she reminds you of the earlier Eleanor a little bit?
Well, I thought regarding her personality, I found her fairly consistent with the original version. Physically, she is a bit different, of course, when it's a different actress, but yeah, when it comes to generally her character, I think she was fairly consistent with the original. And
I think so too. I mean, you get the similar story line. The only thing you don't get is some of the background that we got in the first one um, where I don't think that it covered like one of the reasons why he had her there to begin with was the fact that when she was 10 or 12.
oh yeah, yeah, that part was omitted here.
So she was just a regular. In fact, everybody here was just a random sleep study. And Dr. Markham's thing was he was trying to study fear, and and Actually, yeah, he was trying to study fear and the act of the emotion. So he wanted to put them into a haunted kind of setting to study it that way, instead of focusing on the subject of the paranormal. He was focusing on fear itself.
Yeah.
What do you think of that idea? That it wasn't about the spirituality or the parapsychology of it, where he was going at that angle, where it was actually fear itself.
Well, that was a pretty radical change of his character, but although at the beginning, when it was said that he wasn't going to tell people the truth about the sort of experiment that he was doing, it kind of made him look more sinister than the original version of him. But then, when things got bad, he stopped what he was doing. So we found out he wasn't really that bad after all, and he was an okay character in the end. But one interesting thing I noticed was, did you notice that the characters who remained fairly similar to their counterparts in the original, they kept the same name, while some characters who are significantly more different, they have a different name too. Like the doctor was named Markway in the original and Marrow here, and like I said, his personality is different, his motives are different, and so is his name. And the same thing happened with some other
His
characters.
his wife also didn't end up showing
Uh,
up in here
yeah,
either, so that was
yeah.
a little bit different too. What do you think about that angle, that he didn't seem to have a family or a wife in here?
Well, we didn't get any insight into his personal life, but also I think it wasn't really necessary because in the first one there was this whole subplot of Eleanor developing romantic feelings for him, which wasn't here at all, but it was, I would say, pretty well compensated with another subplot that we got here, where we got to know more about the ghosts and about what happened in that house before, which I found much more interesting, I have to say.
That's what I feel. I mean, I feel like this movie kind of built upon some of the storyline. I mean, it kept some of the storyline. Um, the thing is, it changed Abigail from the um, being the survivor of the family that carried the line, to being the second wife, um, instead. Um, the second wife,
Oh.
and there is a whole um, added storyline of these textile mills that um, had child labor um, involved with the Ukraine aspect of this story, because we only got that in the first film, that he had built this house, and before his first wife even arrived at the place, she had died on the way, and then of
Mm.
course, you know uh, the second wife, she hung herself, and I think Ukraine eventually drowned um, himself in the first film. But
Yeah, I think so.
here we have the history of a House being narrated, or well, not the dark history, until much later. Um, we have the history of the house being that he had built this house for his wives, and evidently there was a darker chapter where his second wife hung herself from some place in the house. In fact, it seemed like it was from that same library where it had a similar staircase that went up. So
Uh, yeah, there was a similar staircase, but in that scene when Eleanor had a vision of the wife hanging, I think it was in that garden or what it was, where they.
yeah, yeah, that garden
Uh,
with those statues and that was a very interesting statue that was laying in the pond area in the
uh,
garden. And it was a similar area that they kind of use. So there were similarities
Indeed.
to some of the places that they had. So, what did you think of Theo?
Oh, well, she was really very beautiful, pretty much like the original version of her, who was also very beautiful. And I really liked her in this version. I kind
And
of like how they emphasized her attraction towards
this was where
women.
I actually had kind of a crush on Catherine Jones. Uh, she was quite chic and very beautiful, and
Yeah,
I've always kind of liked her as an actress. Um, as she came in, she was like, "So now, uh, do you have any men in your life, women in your life, girlfriends?"
yeah. Yeah, I really liked that aspect of her in this movie.
Another thing I noticed is that the relationship between um, Eleanor and Theo seemed to be a heck of a lot better than the original um, two paired together because
Uh,
they didn't seem to argue as much. There wasn't as much animosity between them.
it did.
Um, Whereas it seemed like the original two actresses just downright seemed to hate each other, or at one point in time. But did you notice the caretakers? Um, the Mr.
the
Dudley, though he was somewhat standoffish, he wasn't as rude.
yeah, yeah, but I would say his wife was pretty much like the original version. I think they chose a pretty good actress for that role.
I think so too. The only thing is she didn't have that creepy ass smile.
Uh,
But
kind,
she
yeah.
because after she said as after the original actress on the Mrs. Dudley, she would smile kind of creepily, whereas this one just had a straight face throughout the whole thing, and she didn't meet her at the door like the other one did. She was in the kitchen chopping up something, and she was like, "Well, it's either answer the door or prepare dinner. It's either one of the two. I can't do both."
Mm, yeah.
and Eleanor said something about how pretty the how pretty the house is once she showed her her room, and she's like, "Yes, I know. You haven't dusted the place like I have."
Yeah, indeed. Well,
But
like,
one of the things that I enjoy about the house is that, especially in Eleanor's room, are all these wood carved uh, 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 um, heads of children
yeah,
that are over either the mantle or the fireplace or whatever the heck is above her bed, or on either side. Those were very beautiful.
indeed. Well, I really liked all the statues in the house. It really looked great, and I kind of like statues and that sort of ornaments, and it was really amazing in this movie.
Well, yeah, there's a door that says all who stand here should um,
Be judged or something like that.
shall perish or something like that. So Theo's like, okay, let's not stand here.
Well, yeah.
But okay, so what do you think about Owen Wilson as Luke?
Oh, well, he was okay. He seemed pretty cool throughout the movie. Although, spoiler alert, one problem I have with the movie is what happened to him in the end, which didn't happen in the original, and I kind of
Yeah,
felt it wasn't necessary to. Uh,
I no, I don't think it was entirely necessary to kill him off, but that
yeah.
was a point where I actually jumped when I first saw this film. Um, so uh, let's get a little bit more into the plot. So Eleanor has had a very um, closed in lifestyle style. She's had to take care of her mother, and her mother has recently passed. And so when she gets the invitation to come again here, this is like a dream. She's never had something as exciting as this happen to her. So when she comes to Hill House, this is like the best thing that's ever happened to her. So when she starts, I mean, Luke ultimately tells them the dark history of the house, and Eleanor starts to um, starts to have things happen to her. In fact, the first night that they're all together. Oh, and Dr. Markham actually has two assistants um,
Oh yeah, that was
besides them, before them, before when he was telling the story of the house. The two assistants, one male and one female, come with him. And after he's told the story of the house, the one assistant starts to go towards the xylophone, and she gets hurt like really bad. So the other assistant ends up taking her to town or to a hospital. So then it's just them, and he's on his own, recording the shit. So it's just him, Dr. Markham, Theo, um, Eleanor, and Luke.
mm, yeah. Well, I found the part with the assistants interesting. I mean, they kind of added them apparently just to have something different from the original, but then they found a way to write them out of the plot without changing much of the story. Uh,
Yeah, which was kind of interesting and different
yeah.
because you know originally it was Eleanor and Luke and um, ultimately Theo, who were supposed to be his assistants in the original 1963 adaptation of the novel. So it was definitely a different change. But again, here on the first night, um, they have a similar experience where they start to hear banging, and their rooms are connected by this big ass bathroom um, that kind of connects them together. So when she goes into Theo's room, they have a similar experience, except this time you can actually hear the banging come closer and closer, and you can see more and hear more, and see that their breath comes out really cold. Um, and when Dr. Markham and Luke come to the door, were they chasing a hound?
No, there was no word about the hound in this version. They said they heard Eleanor and Theo screaming, but that was all they heard from what I
In fact,
remember.
Luke had said that he heard Theo screaming, "Help us! Help us!"
Uh, yeah.
And Theo said she was sarcastic and said, "I would never scream for help for you from you." Or, but in any case, and I think that's the next day. Dr. Markham tries to explain it away as being just some fluke that happened. So he gives them some exercise papers that they're supposed to finish, like some like draw like maze things and problem solving papers.
Uh,
So he gives them homework to do, uh, and they have to do it kind of separate from each other. So while this homework is happening, some of them are exploring the house. And she's in this room where there evidently is this flute. Um, so evidently, when Luke and her are in the same room together, all of a sudden, the flue comes down and almost misses his head.
oh, yeah, that was kind of a foreshadowing.
Or wait, first she sees something in the fire. She sees something like
Mm,
eyes, and then that's when Dr. Markham and Theo and Luke come in, and when they stand there, um, that's when the flu comes down and scares both Markham and Luke, and they're like, "Is that what you saw?"
uh,
She's like,
uh,
"No, no." But there is also um, a actually, this one's actually done in blood. There
oh,
is
oh, yeah.
a blood incident where similar words that we saw in the previous film. showed up over that big ass picture of Hugh Crane, where it said
Uh,
something like "Help Eleanor, welcome home," or "Welcome home, Eleanor."
yeah, I think in the original it was Help Eleanor Come Home, and here was Welcome Home Eleanor, if I remember correctly.
Correct. And she was like, "This is not funny," and
Yeah,
she accuses Theo and whoever of writing it, and whoever wrote it was cruel or whatnot. And I think it's that night that she actually follows bloody footprints to a
could
section
be.
in the library behind a shelf. I love houses with this shit. The hidden bookcase,
Uh, Indeed, it looked really intriguing.
and she found a connection. Um, Actually, she found a book that had all the children's names listed, and they were crossed off, and they were 10 years, 8 years old, 12 years old. These were names of children that had died very young in the
Um,
textile mills. These were records that were kept by Hugh Crane. What did you think of that?
well, that was pretty dark, but like I said before, that was the part where I started to find this version of the story even more interesting because, like I said, it took a very different direction from the original, and that was the point where I no longer knew what to expect from this story and how it was going to end and so on. So I found that really exciting.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And then when we found out, well, when she found out that she was related to Hugh Crane, what did you think about that?
Well, actually, I have to say I found that a little confusing. I mean, if the whole backstory of Hugh Crane was based on the idea that he wanted to have children, but he couldn't because the children his wife was having all kept dying at birth. This kind of makes me wonder how come Eleanor could be his descendant? I mean, was
Well,
there any
I
word that he?
I believe that Abigail was his first wife, and then I think that because Hugh Crane was cheating on his wife at the time, I think that's why he got a child um,
Hmm.
from Catherine, who just so happened to be her mother, I believe.
Oh,
And um, the reason why is that necklace that she was wearing um, came from her great from her great grandmother or something like that. And when she realized that Catherine, the either first, second wife, I'm not really sure at this moment.
I think she
That
was the
when she
second
realized that
wife.
she was related, and she realized that she had to save the children's souls from the house. It's just that she'd been frightened to the point of madness by this
Mm,
shit. She was in her own little world of and I know she was scaring Mr. Markham or Dr. Markham, and he himself started to have certain things happen to him. Um, what did you think about the fact that he went into that garden area and that statue's hand? like
Ooh.
out and like grabbed him and tried to drown him.
Well, that was a really good scene because at that point he realized that Eleanor had been right all along, that she wasn't crazy or making things up or anything. That was when he realized the house really was haunted, which was kind of a turning point in the movie. And the scene itself was also pretty well done.
Oh yeah. There was also I love how they did a play on the mirrors in the house, where they were trying to show her that this was a point where she was running through the house. There was this whole mirror that kind of mirror
Oh,
room that kind of turned like and you could hear carousel music in it. The,
uh,
and in the mirrors, it showed her pregnant, and that was when she realized that um she was that was a moment where I think the house was trying to show her how she was related,
phew.
because it was showing her pregnant, and yet it could have meant something about someone in her bloodline was pregnant at with possibly her. Um, and there is also a very interesting moment where she's also in that carousel mirror room and she's running from Ukraine and she just sinks into the floor and comes right back up. What did you think about that?
Uh, well, all those scenes in that room were pretty well done. The whole setting was really interesting, and I really like how they put all that together. And I imagine filming it was also difficult too, since you have to pay attention for the cameras not to get caught in the mirrors.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Uh,
And then of course there was the bedroom scene where um, it seemed like the eyes were looking down at her, and then the the stuff that came down in her like spider legs and trapped her in the bed.
oh yeah.
What did you think about that scene?
You're referring to the scene when the rest of them had to come and set her free, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that was also a pretty intense scene.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it
yeah,
was definitely an intense scene because they couldn't get to her, and the doors had closed. And finally, they when they were able to open the doors, they saw how she was screaming, and she was just literally trapped in this shit. So they actually had to break the wood on the fucking shit. I mean, this stuff looked like it was spider legged around her, you know.
well, yeah. Uh,
I'm
although,
I'm actually wondering how they kind of did that scene because it looked so real. I mean, the and then when she was running down the hallway and then and towards the nursery, and you could hear and feel the ceiling like uh, start to bubble and crunch under whatever Hugh Crane's spirit was trying to, you know, come after her. You could see the ceilings crumble, and then you saw that hand come out of that door. Holy shit!
oh yeah.
I mean, some of this stuff. This could probably not have happened, but the CGI on this was amazing to me.
Indeed, I agree. Mm.
And I think when she goes into the nursery is when she figures it all out, and that's when um, she knew that she was related, and that nursery room was where because it was all set up like her mother's room when she was taking care of her mother. So that was when she had realized that she was there to protect the children, the the children's souls that were in the home. So,
Mm.
what did you think of all of this whole scenario here? Um, that the fact that she um, has to protect these children.
Well, I have to say I really liked that because, as I mentioned in our previous discussion, in the original, I kind of had a problem with the fact that there were obviously multiple ghosts, and each of them was doing their own thing, their own kind of hunting, but we never got to know what happened to each of them and why they were still there and doing what they were doing. While in this version, we get more of an insight into that, and that was something I found really interesting. And also, in the original, there was also a scene when Eleanor heard the sound of a child crying, and she wanted to protect that child. But here we got to see more of that protective side of her, which was very nice to see. And yeah, also, like I said before, that was what makes this version radically different from the original. And in spite of being familiar with the original, I didn't know what was going to happen since these different things happened, and it was really good.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, there was so much that went into this film extra. Um, I mean, when Dr. Markham and Luke and Theo all realized that they had to try to get Eleanor out of the house, um, they threw chairs at the house, and the chairs stuck to the windows.
Yeah,
I mean, that was an interesting effect.
yeah,
Of course, we did not expect Luke to get dragged all the way to the fireplace and get his head lopped off, did we?
mm, yeah. That was surprising, and like I said, I also found that a little disappointing because I felt there was no reason why he should die aside of creating a shocking moment in the story. But yeah, I mean, his death wasn't really necessary for the rest of the story, so I kind of wish they hadn't done that. Uh,
I, in a way, I wish they hadn't, but in a way, I'm kind of glad that they did because that was a very cool lopped off head scene. I mean, you didn't expect it, and it's kind of a jump scare, and it had not been done before. I mean I mean that was a gigantic flu. What a flu is it cleans out a fireplace. The bigger ones. They used to have those on older houses and mansions and shit. And
hmm.
I thought it was a very interesting thing to have. in a fireplace as big as that. The other thing about that fireplace is she found out that he she found out how Hugh Crane got rid of the bodies of the children in that floor space underneath the fireplace. She found some of the
Uh,
skulls that were in there. What did you think about that?
well, actually, when you mentioned jump scares, that was something I wanted to mention. That was actually the only scene that really kind of startled me when that skeleton popped up. That took me by surprise.
Along with the head lopping off, that kind of took me by surprise. I didn't expect that because all of a sudden that carpet that just dragged him, and he stood up for just a moment, and then you heard the in slow motion, and I was like, "Holy fuck!"
Well, I kind of didn't get too surprised by that because when the carpet started to drag him to the fireplace, at that point it already kind of looked like he was going to get killed. It was only a question how. Uh,
Oh yeah, and of course, um, Doctor Markham tried to take her out. I think, or was it Theo? Was it Theo
uh,
that tried to take Eleanor out, or was it Doctor Markham who took her car to try to ram the gate?
uh, uh, I actually think it was Luke who did that.
Okay,
Who drove the car into the gate but didn't manage to break through.
that's right. He was trying to escape with Eleanor, and the gate thing with spikes just came down on the car like and crushed the car. So,
Uh,
no more car,
yeah, well, the
and
car got.
it somewhat trapped them from getting out.
Uh, yeah,
So, but what did you think about the final scene where oh, actually, there was a moment way before when they were standing at that door thing, and and Eleanor was like, "It reminds me of purgatory. It's actually quite beautiful because I was there for like 18 years."
uh, oh yeah.
But she ended up standing at the head of the staircase and calling Hugh Crane out. What did you think of that whole entire scene there when you saw him start to come towards her?
Well, that was pretty scary and pretty well done. Although I need to say, in the end, well, here comes the biggest spoiler of the whole movie. But in this version, I didn't quite understand what Eleanor died from. Uh,
Well, um, she had to protect the children, and in doing, she kind of had to die herself and become part of them. You know, when the spirit of Ukraine went through her and towards the door, you know,
uh,
the whatever was in the door grabbed his soul, and he went to hell, I guess.
yeah,
And, but
probably.
she had to die to protect the children, but at least her soul went to heaven,
Hmm.
or that's where we think that she did, because all the souls of the children you saw start to float up towards the ceiling, the
Uh,
sky.
yeah, but I mean, I didn't quite figure out what physically killed her. Like, when she passed through the door, she was still alive, but then she died. I didn't quite understand that.
I think she just, her soul fought for the children. So, in a sense, she had to sacrifice herself.
Huh. Well, I guess. But yeah, when some things happen differently from the original, I kind of hoped she wouldn't end the same way, but oh well.
Oh well. Yep, that's how I look at it. I mean, I didn't like the fact that she entirely died, nor that Luke died, but it happened.
Yeah.
This went more drastic and it hurt a few people, and um, I think it showed that the house was more malevolent. Um, when it killed Luke, it definitely didn't want his involvement.
Yeah.
um, and he was pissing off Ukraine by helping her
Uh,
out as much as he did. So, I which film adaptation do you like better, though?
oh,
Do you think
well,
you like them both as equally?
well, I do like them both, but I would actually say, although I know many people would disagree with me, but I kind of lean towards this version because we got to know more about the history of the house and of the ghosts and why they are doing what they're doing. And I think that's kind of why I prefer this story over the previous version.
I like bits of both of the stories, and I think I like them both just as equally. But I tend to lean more towards this adaptation too. And there was someone who had gotten in an argument with about how he didn't like this version because he didn't like uh, how this actress kept screaming. And I'm like, if you went through the shit that she had to, you wouldn't scream. I mean, I mean, maybe she did react a lot because she did react a lot. She was a screamer, and she was a
Uh,
reactor to things. I mean, eventually she had to go into her own little world, because she
yeah.
was learning more and more about the house, and nobody was believing her. So everything she kept finding out, I mean, was terrifying. So, I mean,
Yeah.
how would you like to see blood painted in your name, saying, "Well, welcome home, Eleanor.
Yeah, well, after
The
all,
house
it's a.
welcoming you." You follow bloody footprints and find out that the guy involved in this whole house, which, to be honest, if you've never been outside of your own home, to experience anything else but this, if I mean, if you've only experienced what she experienced, how would you react? I mean, it would be like your whole life you were shut in, to do absolutely nothing but take care of your mother. You know,
Mm, yeah. Mm.
if you couldn't see any friends or anything like that because you had to take care of your mother.
Uh, yeah, it wouldn't be nice.
Mm-mm.
And well, speaking of screaming, I mean, this is a horror movie after all, so I guess it's normal that characters scream.
Yeah, because even Theo somewhat screamed at times. I think.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
think she only screamed at the moment where the room where they were together in the room, and she was frightened. She was frightened. So,
Indeed.
but she was a much more stronger character. I feel.
Oh yeah, I like the scene when she slapped Dr. Marrow in the face when she found out the truth about his experiment.
Well, yeah, that's right. She did find out the truth. So, what did you think about their reaction when when they found out the rest of the group?
Phew. Well, I think it was natural that they reacted the way they did, although uh, Eleanor still knew that what happened couldn't have been a part of the experiment, and when it was said that he had been deceiving them until that point, it kind of implied that he had been behind everything that had happened when the truth was he wasn't, which in turn meant that it would be even more difficult for them to believe that what happened to Eleanor was all real.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Well, yeah, because there was a moment where Eleanor actually um, listened to Dr. Markham's tape, or what, or was it Theo that had listened to the tape? I think it was Eleanor,
I think so too.
and how um, he wasn't sure what to believe on her, and so
Mm.
what did you think about the moment when she had actually gone up the stairs and she was at the top and it looked like she was about to jump.
Oh, that was a very good scene. I mean, in this movie, we actually saw the staircase fall apart piece by piece while Dr. Marrow was climbing up, and it looked even more dangerous than in the original version. It was a pretty suspenseful scene, although at the same time I kind of knew that nothing was going to happen because I had heard people say that Liam Neeson only died in Star Wars and in no other movie, so
Yeah, it was definitely different. So,
yeah, and
what did you think about the ending? Um, and the fact that Dr. Markham and Theo were the only survivors.
well, I found it pretty sad. Like I said earlier, I kind of wish they hadn't ended Luke's character the way they did, and when things with Eleanor took a different direction, I kind of hoped there would be a different ending for her too, but it ended the way it did, and well, I mean, it's a horror movie and it's supposed to be scary, but I found it more sad than scary.
Yeah, I found it more sad towards the end myself. Um, I enjoyed the interior and the exterior of the house. I loved um, the fact the storyline seemed to be a little bit better, a little bit more adapted. Um,
Yeah,
um, there was a lot of mystery that was involved in the original adaptation, and I liked that aspect of the original. So um, maybe I feel like this explains too much away without leaving some of the mystery um, involved. I feel like they tied too much together to at times, because sometimes I enjoy a film when there is a little bit more mystery involved, a little bit more suspension, where not
mm,
everything is tied up in a little ribbon. Some should have been left to the imagination. Some of the story. Um, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm saying, but I feel like they tied the ribbon a little bit too much here, to me. I feel like they should have left it a little bit more open ended. Um, Maybe to the extent where it made you wonder instead of making. Well, I guess having the two survive, it kind of makes you go, huh? But I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying, but I feel like they tied it up in a bow for you, and tied they added more to it, and yet I almost feel like they added too much. Um,
I
Gave you too much information. I don't
I think I see what you mean.
know. I feel like there's no mystery involved. I mean, there was horror. I enjoyed the special effects tremendously. What they did with this film, they outdid themselves with some of it. I mean,
Yeah,
I
definitely.
don't think people were ready for these really good effects, and it was it was awesome to see. I mean, that a house could do that kind of thing. Okay, maybe some people would rather have things that are more believable than what we saw. But I like things that are impossible. I do. I mean, if you can make the impossible possible, that's cool. I mean, as long as it's executed well, and I thought that the CGI in here was executed well.
It was for sure.
Um, I mean, it may have been some things that may have looked a little computerized, but you know what? That hand coming out of the nursery, that was cool. I mean, I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
I thought that the whole bed scene, that was cool. The fact that she sunk into the floor, I thought that was cool. I mean, these were I mean, the fact that the statues turned their heads and started to
Oh,
come
oh
alive.
yeah.
I mean, that was cool. I mean, these are things that we probably wouldn't have been able to do if not for some of the CGI that's out there.
For sure.
So, what did you think about the film uh, um, as a whole? Is there anything else that you would want to say about the film we have not discussed.
Phew. Well, uh, uh, I'm not sure. Um, I think I think I discussed mostly everything I wanted to say. Mm, I really enjoyed it, as you know. I kind of wish some things were done differently, but it was still pretty good and really exciting.
I thought so too. I mean, it definitely had the atmosphere that was needed. I mean, the home was it was something different. Trying to see here. Let's see. Just trying to see. Okay, so the filming locations were at Belvoir Castle in Belvoir, Leicestershire, England, in the UK.
Ooh,
Um, just trying to get some of the filming location. Yeah, the haunted house or hill house was at Harlaxton Manor in Harlaxton, Lincolnshire, England. Um, it also mentions Belvoir Castle in the UK, Grantham, Lincolnshire, Queen Mary Dome, um, which was at 1126 Queens Highway, Long Beach, California.
mm,
um, the Great Hall uh, at Harlaxton Manor was the billiard room. Raleigh Manhattan Beach Studios, which was at 1600 Rosecrans Avenue, Manhattan Beach, California, which was the studio. Um, they also did some in Orlando, Florida, and then some in Tustin, California.
ooh,
So
wow.
I'm pretty sure Harlaxton Manor was the exterior. Belvoir Castle had to have been much of the interior.
Ooh,
So,
could be.
in any case, what were some of your favorite scenes? Or
Phew,
if there was a scene that you could take from this film, what would it be?
phew. Mm, that's an interesting question, but I think I would go with the scenes of Eleanor investigating about the history of the house, about the children, and following the footprints and exploring the library and everything. It to me, it was the most exciting part because it was the most different from the original and the least predictable. And
Oh yeah, because there was a flip book that kind of showed that Catherine was pointing out where the bodies were buried.
yeah, and the final encounter with Hugh Crane's ghost was also pretty good.
Oh yeah, trying to think. So one of my favorite scenes would probably be the bedroom scene because the spirit comes in
Oh, oh,
and
oh, yeah.
it makes it look like there are these two giant eyes in the rafters, or
Oh, and yeah.
or is it the stained glass windows that make the eyes?
Uh, I'm
And
not
then,
sure, but
but regardless, the whole room looks like it bends, like it's animated. like it's moving, and I love how the fact when he breathes, the glass breaks. Yeah,
Yeah, and another effect I found really cool were the statues of the children's heads coming to life.
those are awesome too.
Yeah,
Because all of a sudden they're saying no, Eleanor, and their mouths are open. And then it seems like their heads turn.
yeah.
I think that's why I like how unique the house looks on the inside. It was just everything worked to the extent that it built up the tension. I mean, yeah, she screamed a lot and she got reacted a lot. But growing up like she did, how can you expect her to react any different? I mean, to some of the shit that was happening to her. I mean,
Indeed.
I think she was just acting naturally.
Well, yeah.
So, in any case, let's see about the music. Um, see if I can find any thing here. Oh, all right. So let's see. So the project was originally with Dimension Films, with Wes Craven attached to direct.
Who?
Uh, Evidently, which is something different,
Yeah.
I guess. Liam Neeson nicknamed Catherine Zeta-Jones the Welsh Gazelle
Oh.
because they repeated a running take time after time, and he couldn't keep up with her. The house used in the film is located in Grantham, England, and is owned by the University of Evansville, Indiana. It is used by students that study abroad.
Who?
Evidently, Stephen King wrote the first draft of the script. When this fell through, he reworked it into Rose Red.
Who? Does not
Uh,
mm, does not mean that movie is similar to these ones.
we can eventually watch it.
We could.
The second adaptation of the book was going to be titled The Haunting of Hill House.
Uh,
This was originally going to be titled The Haunting of Hill House,
yeah, that's also the book title, right?
which was the original novel title. It was shortened back to The Haunting to avoid confusion with House on Haunted Hill
Yeah,
from 1999 as well.
yeah, actually,
Apparently, um, this is not a remake of which you said this was not a
yeah,
remake of Robert Wise's classic, as the production
yeah,
company did not have the remake rights. They were not allowed to replicate even one shot from the 1963 film. Instead, it is a new adaptation of Shirley Jackson's novel.
mm, yeah, all those, in my opinion, some scenes still were pretty similar to the first adaptation.
So the screams or the creaks and moans heard throughout the house were recorded and played during filming in order to get a more natural expression of fear out of the actors. The tagline for this movie, "Some houses are born bad," is also a line that Dr. Joyce Reardon says in the Stephen King made for television series Rose Red in 2002.
Oh, interesting.
Steven Spielberg was so disgusted by the quality of the final project of the film that he removed his name and ensured that the credit made no single mention of him.
Oh, then how was it found out that he was involved?
Well, he was originally involved as an executive producer of the project, but he thought that the end project of this film was so bad that he wanted his credit and mention of it not even involved. So he didn't want to be involved in the end project. I would see. I didn't have as much hate for this film. I mean, I wish they could have left some things unsaid,
Huh.
but having said that, I enjoyed the film. I mean, I loved most of it. I mean,
Indeed.
all right. So several of the sets, some of the largest exteriors, interior sets ever built, depicting the Hill House, were so big they had to be built in the hangar that housed the Spruce Goose, the mammoth airplane built by Howard Hughes.
Huh.
The outside of Hill House, as well as some interiors, were filmed in Harlaxton Manor in England.
Cool.
At the time of its release, it was widely rumored that Steven Spielberg either directed some scenes or participated in post-production because he didn't like the rough cut he saw. This, however, never was confirmed.
Ah.
The set, designed by Eugenio Zanetti and built in the Spruce Goose hangar, was one of the largest interior sets ever built.
mm, well, yeah, that makes sense.
At one point, Wes Craven was developing a remake to this film, but dropped out in favor of directing Scream.
Oh.
Catherine Zeta-Jones and Liam Neeson were so frightened on the set of that neither of them wanted to film there after dark.
Wow.
Cinematographer Caleb Deschanel was originally attached to shoot the movie and even completed some of the filming, but dropped out due to creative differences.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
This was the first film for uncredited executive producer Samuel Z. Arkoff in almost 15 years. It also gave him a chance to work with his daughter, Donna Roth. He was one of the producers.
Oh.
The film cast includes one Oscar winner, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and 5 Oscar nominees, Liam Neeson, Owen Wilson, Virginia Madsen, Todd Field, and Bruce Dern. Michael Tolkien did an uncredited rewrite on the script. The small car that Luke tries to crash into the gate is a 1974 AMC Gremlin.
Oh.
The part of the big lion head in the fireplace was originally played by a large green ball.
Oh.
The mansion set to build had a cost £8 million or 13 million of 1999, equivalent to 14 million pounds or 20 million as of 2020.
Wow.
Voice actors in this movie, Cortland Mead and Travis Tedford, appeared in The Little Rascals in 1994. The official Spanish title for the film is The Haunting La Guardia. La Guarida. Translation related to English, it would be The Haunting the Lair.
Hmm.
In this movie, Owen Wilson plays a character named Luke, his brother's real name in his brother's name in real life.
That's interesting.
Even though he's uncredited as executive producer, Steven Spielberg cast Catherine Zeta-Jones 5 years later in The Terminal in 2004.
Oh, nice.
Liam Neeson is afraid of heights, so his fear when he was dangling off the flight of
Oh,
steps while trying to save Nell required no acting.
I read that part. That's pretty interesting.
So, the ghost of Hugh Crane was originally supposed to emerge from the fireplace and try to attack Nell. In a theatrical cut, Hugh Crane's ghost comes out of the defaced portrait and hovers down the staircase to Nell.
Huh.
The shooting script used during filming saw more scenes with Hill House's caretakers, the Dudleys. In one scene, when Dr. Marrow, Liam Neeson, is talking to Nell, alone in the greenhouse, Mr. Dudley enters and tells Nell about where Hugh Crane's first wife, Renee, hung herself before he goes off to clean the paint letters from the Hugh Crane portrait. In another, after Nell finds out Dr. Marrow isn't behind the creepy incidents at Hill House, she walks out of the dining room to the main hall and sees the Dudleys about to leave for the day. Mr. Dudley, at first, holds the door open as an invitation for her to go with them. When Nell doesn't join them, Mrs. Dudley smiles and she shuts the door as she leaves with her husband, which locks behind her.
Huh.
Eleanor, Nell Vance, and Luke Sanderson are the two guests who die in Hill House and are the only characters to close the main hall doors that are later used to trap the ghost of Hugh Crane, played by Charles Gunning. Nell closes one of the doors when she tells Theo about purgatory, and later Luke shuts one of the doors to give Nell some privacy with her tests when he leaves. At around 6 minutes in the movie, Dr. Marrow talks to his boss, Malcolm, about his research on the dynamics of fear. In the shooting script, Malcolm allows Marrow to go to Hill House because it will give him the study and results he needs for the last chapter of his book titled Fear and Performance. In the script's alternate ending, Marrow pushes the book and dedicates it in the memory of those who died in Hill House. Renee
Oh,
Crane, Carolyn Crane, Eleanor Nell Vance, and Luke Sanderson. David Marrow's book being published is cut out of the movie, though Malcolm does say fear and performance to David when originally trying to talk him out of doing his research.
interesting.
In the behind the scenes feature, Owen Wilson says that during the scene where he is Beating the painting with a candlestick, a piece of it came off and hit him in the face. He had to get stitches.
Oh my.
In the theatrical trailer, there was a scene where Nell asks Theo if she ever kept something to herself because she was afraid, and Theo says all the time. This is taken from a deleted scene mentioned in the original shooting script, used during filming, where Theo and Nell are in Theo's rooms having drinks, and Theo is painting Nell's toenails.
Who?
Deleted scenes show in theatrical trailers and television commercials for this movie, but not included in the final cut of the film include a scene where Nell and Theo open up doors to the house while exploring, and they find brick walls in the doorway to prevent them from entering. In an effect shots with Hugh Crane's ghost exploding out of the fireplace, and a scene with Theo in Nell's bedroom shortly before Dr. Marrow admits the truth about his experiment, with Theo saying, "As soon as I turn out the light, my heart starts pounding."
Who?
In the script, when Hugh Crane's ghost is closing the doors of Hill House to prevent the guests from leaving, Nell watches and repeats Mrs. Dudley's line, "In the night, in the dark."
Um,
In between scenes where doors to the house slam shut and lock on their own. In the film, Nell says "in the dark" ahead of Mrs. Dudley when she repeats her quote to Theo in her bedroom for comedic effect.
yeah, I remember that scene.
And in the original shooting script, Dr. David Marrow's first name was Jim. The name David is taken from an omitted character from the script named David Watts, who was a
Oh.
guest Marrow invites to Hill House for the study. The absence of Watts takes up most of the shooting script. When Nell sees Watts' car drive up, she later finds the keys to his Toyota by the fireplace, but Watts himself doesn't arrive inside the house, and the guests split up to look for him. Near the end, when Marrow, Theo, and Luke look for Nell when she re-enters the house, they find the dead body of Watts held in the hand of the man statue in the greenhouse pool.
Oh my.
That seems to be a big omission. I
Indeed. Uh,
would. I think I've already gone through that. Let's see. I was gonna go. Ah, here we go. Let's see who did the music for this. Let's. Oh, all right. Let's see. Music was by Jerry Goldsmith,
yeah.
and Jerry Goldsmith looks like he did some stuff for Master of Disguise. Let's see. Okay, so he's done a lot. Jerry Goldsmith has. Let's see. He did stuff in Climax in 1957.
Ooh.
Let's see. What else? Black Saddle, some in Gunsmoke. He did some of the music in this TV series Thriller. Some Perry Mason episodes, Kane's 100, The Twilight Zone.
Ooh.
54 episodes of The Twilight Zone. He did the music for. He did Some of the music and shock treatment. The Satan Bug. Von Ryan's Express, The Agony and the Ecstasy. The prologue. He was uncredited in that. Let's see. Our Man Flint. He was a conductor in. Let's see. The Girl from Uncle. The Man from Uncle. Planet of the Apes. He was a conductor that was uncredited and a music producer that was uncredited in the original Planet of the Apes. 100
Ooh.
Rifles. Let's see. The Homecoming: A Christmas Story. He was uncredited there. The other, let's see, Chinatown, Tarzan the Mighty.
Ooh.
Let's see, Room 222, The Reincarnation of Peter Proud, The Wind and the Lion, Babe, a TV movie, probably about Babe Ruth. Logan's Run, The Omen. He was a music producer and an orchestrator behind the original Omen.
Oh yeah, yeah. That one is on my Halloween playlist.
He was a score producer that was uncredited in Omen 2. He was a conductor that was uncredited in The Swarm, in Magic. He was a composer for the Source music and a music supervisor in The Great Train Robbery. Star Trek: The Motion Picture. He was an uncredited conductor. Let's see. Outland, Poltergeist, The Secret of Nim, conductor or music producer and an orchestrator, uncredited. First Blood, Psycho 2, The Return from Man from Uncle, the 15-year later affair. Twilight Zone, the movie. Gremlins, who was a conductor, uncredited. He was part of Runaway from 1984, Rambo: First Blood Part 2, King Solomon's Mines from 85, Legend, Explorers, Poltergeist 2, Hoosiers, Alan Quartermain and the Lost City of Gold, Lionheart, Inner Space, Rambo 3, Alien Nation, The Burbs, Leviathan, Warlock, Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier, Total Recall from 1990, Gremlins 2, The New Batch, The Russia House. He was also part of Gremlins 2, The New Batch, the video game.
Oh, wow.
Sleeping with the Enemy, Omen 4, The Awakening. Medicine Man, Gladiator, Basic Instinct, Forever Young, The Vanishing, Dennis the Menace, Rudy, 6 Degrees of Separation, Angie, 176 episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation, Speed, The River Wild, IQ, Congo, the movie Powder, oh God, The Ghost in the Darkness, Shiloh, Star Trek: First Contact, LA Confidential, Hercules, Air Force One, The Edge, Deep Rising, U.S. Marshals, Mulan, Small
Whoa.
Soldiers, Star Trek Insurrection, The Mummy, Shiloh 2, Shiloh season, The Haunting, as we know, The 13th Warrior, Hollow Man, How the Grinch Stole Christmas,
Huh.
The Theme, Star Trek Voyager, 170 episodes, The
Huh.
Sum of All Fears, Star Trek Nemesis,
Wow. He really did a lot.
Back in Action, The Fear, let's see, Rambo, Curious George 2, Despicable Me, Hop, let's see, just look it up here. And the last couple were that he did were he did something for Star Trek Picard in 2020, and then evidently he did something for Sign Shalom, a TV miniseries. So yeah, he's done a lot. So the musician, the composer behind this particular adaptation. So I think that's all that we have for you today, folks. Unless you have anything else that you'd like to discuss.
Oh, I'm not sure. I think we covered it all pretty much.
Oh yeah, I think so too. We had a nice discussion here. So in any
Definitely.
case, thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen, to our ramblings on this particular film. I mean, again, this is another film that was put out by um, let's see, by that Dark Castle Pictures, which was basically a company line that basically went and did readaptations and remakes of certain films over time. And House on Haunted Hill was one of those,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
and so on and so forth. So, and I think we've covered a couple of them in the past. So,
Yeah, I think so.
it was definitely entertaining to see. Um, but thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Definitely check out some of our other discussions. It normally goes under films discussed by Boris and Dave, or Dave and Boris, whichever I decide to put at that point in time. But it's on our right now. It's on our Inside Movies Galore channel. But eventually, I plan on putting us up on Delusions of Grandeur. I just haven't gotten around to doing that. So, in any case, thank you for coming along with us on this journey, and just go out and see the film and enjoy yourselves.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show, and thank you all for listening.
Definitely. Oh, and watch out for any spectacular things that happen in your house.
Oh,
You never
indeed.
know when you might catch some ghost somewhere.
Yeah.
Alrighty.